I'm here to talk about a problem that's plaguing Wallkill right here in Orange County, and that's the utility poles. And by the way, for you photographers, we're supposed to do this outside by the pole. We're going to run out there quickly and do a photo op at the end of this event after we finish. So all the brave press people who would like to take a picture can, and those who don't want to, stay dry. Okay, but we're not going to deter you. Okay, so now we know that these utility poles are important. They provide us service, whether it's electricity or phone or cable. We depend on these poles to help connect our homes to the rest of the world. But despite the fact that these poles line our neighborhood, we have a few telecommunications and utilities companies right here in Orange County that simply put are not being good neighbors. So let me explain. There are hundreds of double utility poles put in the ground by companies like Frontier and Time Warner Cable, Orange and Rockland Utilities that are no longer in service but are being neglected. You heard me, that's right, that's hundreds. Here in the town of Wallkill, the supervisor has identified 546. 19 of them happen to be on this street, Tower Hill Drive, that's why we're here. And the Wallkill Department of Public Works has spent resources to identify every single one of the poles and who is the rightful owner. And they deserve credit for bringing this long list to our attention. And the issue with these poles is this. They're no longer in service, but they are left lining the streets either to rot or to make it so a utility company has less work at the inconvenience of a neighborhood. You see, when a utility decides it's time for a new pole, many times, because the current one is showing some weathering, they put a new pole in the ground. And their job is to notify all of the other utility companies that they're making this move. Then, because New York State operates on what's called a typical last wire down syndrome, the last company to take its wires off the old pole is responsible for removing the new pole. The last one to take its wires off the old pole is responsible for removing that pole once it puts wires on the new one. Makes a lot of sense. Unfortunately, right now, residents of Wallkill are being taken advantage of. And that's because there are a few issues that have arisen according to local residents, the supervisor, and the town. First, because multiple companies can share a utility pole, once one moves and the others begin to follow suit, the remaining companies begin squabbling about who is the last to go. It's sort of a little bit of Abbott and Costello. You did it. No, you did it. No, you did it. Okay? In other instances, this pole removal obligation has dissuaded some local service providers from relocating their wires altogether. So in both cases, you have double poles, often sitting within feet of each other. They're redundant, they're eyesores, crisscrossing the neighborhood. And in any case, this can be inconvenient, it can be unsightly, but most important, it can be a danger. It seems like a small issue, but these are huge utility companies. They have hundreds of thousands of customers here in the Hudson Valley, and they have an obligation to get something done, but often they don't listen until there are many voices behind it. That's why I'm here today, to get them to pay attention. So I'm here today to lend any clout I have to the town of Wallkill so we can stand arm in arm and tell these major corporate entities to do right by their customer and their neighbors. Residents and Town Supervisor Depew have made it clear. These duplicate poles are a problem for the town for two reasons. First, they're eyesores. These poles are often sitting there. Sometimes they're neglected. Often they're rotting. They've removed their wire. They have no incentive to keep the poles in good shape. The massive columns and wires already line communities' members' streets and yards. Why do they need it double? But that's not the main reason. These empty poles are blots on the landscape, but the main reason is they're a real safety hazard. If they're let to rot over time and not kept up, like the new ones besides them, they risk damaging everything in their path. Most of these poles weigh half a ton. They're over 1,000 pounds. And if one falls on the other during a storm, they knock out all the utility lines, not just for the house they're in front of, but for whole neighborhoods and regions. There could be serious power outages, communications problems. They could even block roadways. And, God forbid, one of these poles actually toppled onto a pedestrian or a passing car or came through the roof of a neighboring home. That's a nightmare scenario. And so, they have to be taken out. So today I'm launching my push. And I want to tell you, it's worked in the past. Just recently, Verizon had a small little office that was in the neighborhood of Syracuse. It had deteriorated. The town people complained and complained and complained. It was an eyesore. They hadn't kept it up. It was ruining the whole neighborhood. It was a residential neighborhood. I went there. I called out Verizon. The house is now taken down. I hope we'll have the same success with all these other utilities.
We hope so, too.
Be good neighbors. So we're saying, Mr. Utility, tear down these poles.